Hey y'all, it's time for some damn good content. I'm Shelby, your host and business bestie. I'm a content creator, social media manager and coach, keynote speaker, wife, and a mama of two who ditched her 9-to-5 to build a thriving multi-six-figure business solely using social media. Just like you, I'm a working mom and a wife with limited time. So I'm committed to cutting the fluff and delivering tips and fresh ideas straight to your earbuds on how you too can harness damn good content and create that type of business that you love and are proud of. Each week, we'll deep dive into strategy and mindset of building your brand on social media so that your confidence and success in the online space can skyrocket. Get ready to step outside of your comfort zone and start creating some damn good content. Are you ready? Let's freaking get it. Hey guys, welcome back to the Damn Good Content Podcast. I have today with me my bestie, Stephanie Miguez. She is a killer mom, but in a past life, she was a damn good life coach. And we have her here today to talk about her expertise, balancing mom life, and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, actually. Cheers to moms and wine and just talking about all the things. How are you?
I'm great.
Give us a little backstory on who you are and a little bit about what you did, what you're doing, all the things.
Sure. So, like Shelby said, I'm a bestie for life. Shelby and I met back in 2009 and, been friends ever since. Let's see. So my background, kind of how I got into life coaching, it really started from me becoming a mom. I had a lot of self-conscious issues leading up to becoming a mom. I think it's just, and I'm not going to put this on everybody, but, a lot of women struggle with body image and perfectionism and, caring so much about what other people think, people pleasing. I suffered from all of those. And it was through becoming a mom to my first child, a little girl, Lucy, that I started realizing I do not want her to have to suffer from those things. And so I started doing some really deep digging, some therapy work, some just self-discovery, and realized that I wanted to break down those beliefs. And so through that, I realized, well, golly, there's a lot of women out there that could use some help. And so I ended up training, and it was a 6-month training program, and it's called Inner Glow Circle, and it was awesome. And got certified to become a life coach, started my own business. It's called Bloom Life Coaching. That was back in 2018. And so at the time I was in sales and was doing that full time, but was also running my business. And so literally I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I would meet with a client. I'd work all day long in sales, and then at night I'd come home and I'd meet with another client around 8 o'clock after I put my daughter to bed. And so it was really busy. And by the time I got pregnant with our second daughter, this was in she was born in 2020. So 2019, I was ready to kind of go out on my own. And so basically, the backstory there is I was working for corporate America, and I kind of saw a need in my own organization for coaching, because I myself was a salesperson, and it took me a couple years to become successful. And I kind of figured, it wasn't that I didn't have the sales training. That was great. It was more the mental training.
Right.
It was the self-confidence issues. It was, no, just go for the CEO, call the dang CEO. Why not? And I had to break down those barriers to continue to be successful. So I actually approached my organization with the idea of coaching. This was in 2019, before coaching was really widely accepted or even appreciated. And I kind of wrote my own job description, and they thought it was a good idea, but at the time just couldn't take me on. So I ended up leaving the company, started my own business. But within probably 3 to 4 months, we were back in touch, and I became just a 1099, where I did more, not life coaching, but business performance coaching with up and coming leaders for the organization. So I did that from 2020 through the pandemic, all through 2022, and then had my third child. And since then I've been basically full-time mom. So it's been crazy, but a good ride.
I will back you up just a little bit to when you did launch your Bloom coaching. And I'll be very frank, because I think that now life coaching is way more popular in the sense of like people know what it is.
Yeah.
And so when you started, everybody was like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean you're going to be a life coach? And when I tell y'all she was in social media before I feel like social media was a thing, obviously that's not true because it was 2018, but it was very new to a lot of people. And she was thriving. And you did what's the series you did in the mornings?
So every single morning, this was a way to hold myself accountable, but it was cool because it was a way that I really connected with a lot of people in the audience. Every morning I would wake up and I would just take a picture of my coffee pot, but I would put the timestamp on it. And I would wake up every morning and I would do, some journaling, some meditation, and then I'd exercise. But I mean, I would do it every single day. And if there was ever a day that, I woke up late, I would still do the time, but they would write me, message me, and they'd say, oh my gosh, what happened?
Yeah.
We were watching.
Yeah. And I'm talking about too, it's the worm. What is the thing that you did, the series,
early bird gets the worm.
Yes. And you would get on every day, or was it every day?
So it all started with the coffee pot.
Yes.
Then probably like after a year in, I started, it was IGTV is what it was. I don't know if that's even a thing.
No, but it's fine. Keep going.
Basically, I'm like, video, okay. At that point, I'm like reading articles. Like, what do you do on social media to be relevant?
Yeah.
So it was IGTV. It was video was the thing. And so, every single morning I would get up and I would have my cup of coffee and I would just stick my camera on record and just kind of talk about my thoughts. Sometimes it was motivational. Sometimes it was just where I was at for the day.
Yeah.
And I think I stuck with it for quite a bit. But then I don't know what happened. I think the pandemic started.
I think so too.
Came into a time warp. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to push you a little bit to try to remember exactly how you felt in that moment and let me phrase this. If you're listening to this podcast, I didn't give her any prep on the questions that I'm going to ask or anything, and basically nothing's off limits at this point. But I want you to channel back into when you were in corporate and say like the light bulb went off. What were you feeling? What was that key turning point where you were like, this needs to happen and I am the person to do this? Like, where did that happen?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it was my own turning point when, I do know. Okay. So, for sales organizations, usually there's this giant sales goal that you hit. And sometimes there's a big fun trip. That's what we had for our company. And, that's what we lived and breathed for, was hitting contests. We wanted to make it to, our trip was always in Kim. And I finally hit it. And the day I hit it, in one breath, it felt really good. But in the other breath, it was kind of like, this is why, I'm like, this is all the nights and the days that I didn't spend with my daughter, all the hours that I didn't spend with her for this, it kind of felt empty a little bit. And, it had nothing to do really with the organization. It just had more to do with my values, and it just didn't necessarily align with, what I stood for. And for me, family is always going to be number one. So even if, I'm a bazillionaire, if I don't have time to spend with my family, then it will not be worth it. And so that was really the turning point. Mm-hmm. So from then I'm like, okay, what are my values?
Right.
And what do I want to just dive headfirst into so that I do feel comfortable if I do have to sacrifice an hour here or there, whatever it is, or all day long from my children, what am I okay doing?
Right.
And it was helping other women. And so it started as wanting to mentor women, working moms, to help them figure out how to organize their lives so that they could make time for their own self-care. And so that was it. But I started my own business, but I wouldn't consider myself a typical entrepreneur. I don't love risks, and I'm honestly not a huge visionary. I'm more of a process-driven person. And so that was why my first thought was, I want to be a coach, but how can I become a coach within this organization? And so that was where the whole, let me write my job description, let me talk to leadership in this company and see how they can create a position for me. So I don't have to go out on my own. But it really was a 6-month process. And honestly, by the end of it, I was so convicted around it. I had multiple clients and we were making changes in people's lives that I was like, you know what? I feel strongly about this. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to do it.
I want to back you up and say, were the clients you had within that organization, or was that outside of the organization? And so how did those people find out what you were doing? You had launched Bloom at this point, correct?
Yeah, I had launched Bloom and they were from social media. Every single one was from social media.
It works.
It was cool. It was very organic, honestly. It was people that would message, because every day I would do the early bird gets the worm segment. But I would also post, I had to and I don't know, this may be what you do now, but Mondays were always, I'm making this up because I don't remember, but it was Mondays were for motivation. Sundays were always about a reset or taking care of yourself. Yeah. Tuesdays, I always shared something I was reading from a book, so I had on Tuesdays, I do this. On Wednesdays, I do a quote on, whatever. And so people would comment. I was constantly messaging back and forth with different women, and they'd start talking to me. And so I always offer a free discovery call where it's just 30 minutes where we kind of talk and just chat about what's going on in your life. And so it would start on Instagram usually. And then I would just bring it up and I'd say, hey, do you want to hop on a call? And we would. And not every time, but a lot of times after we chat, people were like, yeah, let's do this, so that's how it works. Well,
I would say this, it could be just because I'm biased because you are a very, very great friend of mine, but I will say that I've been trying to convince her to get back into the life coaching scene for a really long time because I'm technically, quote unquote, one of your clients, whether you accept it or not, or I don't pay her. I just pay her in wine and being your friend. But the wisdom that it shocks me in a way of it's not bad and it's nothing negative towards you, that sometimes when I spit certain aspects out at you, you give me such wisdom and knowledge back. And I'm like, holy shit. She has so much to give that I feel like it's only holding you back to a sense of when are you coming back? When are you going to provide this to women that need it, especially the women that want more, that are living in a world now that is consumed with social media. And yes, I do it for a living, but in the same sense, it's not a very positive thing because you're so consumed with comparison, posture syndrome, all those things. When are you ready or to come back to guide those people, at least just to show up on social media and give some tips, not necessarily even show or take clients at the moment? Or is that in the works anytime soon? You don't have to give us an exact date, but can you give us something?
I know. I would say that my friend Shelby is definitely pushing me to think about it more. It's really not a lack of desire. It's truly just thinking about time and how am I going to fit that in. So I've got 3 kids. My oldest is 5.5. So clearly it's a lot of heartbeats that we're taking care of under one household. I want to do it, but for me, and this probably goes back to my perfectionism, it's if I'm going to do anything, I want to do it first class.
Yeah.
But I also know that you preach, just get on there and it's okay if it's messy, So my 2 oldest will be in school starting in August, and I think that'll give me more time to start thinking about posting or actually posting. And we'll see where it takes me.
Okay, well, let's turn the ropes a little and put you to work just so we can show everybody what they're actually missing out. Because in reality, there's a lot of coaches now on social media. There's a lot of people that are telling you they're life coaches, business coaches, whatever type of other coaches there are out there. But in all reality, they're just like social media managers. There's the good ones, there's the bad ones, there's the people that just want to make money versus the ones that actually know what they're talking about. Right. And so you've dealt with me for the last 2 years of going out on my own. It's been very tricky, and this podcast is very open and very safe space. So anything that we've talked about is fair game at this point. But just talk about how you've helped me overcome obstacles, like the dark places I've been in. So say like this past like January when I was like just really mentally struggling with, weight or my business or my mentality of like where it's going. I could lose it all tomorrow. Like all those things. Like give a little bit of insight on from the outside perspective, I guess, since I'm really your only coaching client.
Yeah. I mean, for me, especially like if I'm watching someone do something incredible, obviously I know so much about you because of course we're such close friends, but I mean, I believe in what you're doing and I know you believe in what you're doing. And then there's this dark side, that comes out. And I think a lot of people have that.
Yeah.
It's like the angel and the devil sitting on the shoulder and one's like, you got this.
Yeah.
The other side's like, you suck.
Yeah.
And it's terrible and it's hard. And so it's an acknowledgement that the thought is there, and it's actually not trying to extinguish that thought, but it's trying to manage the thought, and it's trying to figure out a way to be like, the thought's there, and I acknowledge you, but we're not going to listen to you today because of evidence in A, B, and C. And so I feel like, I don't know, I mean, it's not like I have a... what's that word? A formula. I don't have a formula, in place, but I feel like that's what I do. It's like, if you're telling me, I don't know, you're not successful or your business is going to fail, the first thing I do is start looking for evidence of, look what you overcame and here's where you're at now, reminding you of the hardships that you've already overcome and where you are today, Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of specific things that we've talked about in this moment. I'm sure if I sat here for a minute, I could think about it, but I feel like that's the first thing that comes to mind.
No, and I think too, what a big thing that you've helped me overcome is like, I'm such a visionary where the sense of like, I have these really high expectations and goals. And if I don't get even remotely close to it, I feel like I failed. And what you have taught me is to celebrate very small victories in the sense of like,
You're big on that.
I started a business, you left corporate, you have now built a team, you've now, entered this different era of like money that you're making that you would never have made. Like maybe the client that you didn't get is a small victory because it's opened doors for the next client that you've gotten. And it's really made me really open my mindset to the point of like, you are where you are. And at dinner tonight, you said, you have to be able to accept the joy you are living in today in order to succeed or excel in where you want to be. Yeah. And so I feel like that is huge, especially like a lot of the audience that's listening to us as moms, or they're women in general. Like I might have a few men. Thank you for listening. But the women are either scared of taking the leap from corporate, or they're in corporate, they want to climb that ladder, or they are stay-at-home moms, but they might be looking for a side hustle, or they are stay-at-home moms and they've just lost themselves into the sense of like what we talked about earlier is self-care. And like, I'm a huge advocate on it. And I feel like when I started my business, it kind of went away because I was huge on working out. I was huge on certain things. And then I started a business and I was like, I don't have time for diddly squat. And you were like, okay, let's bring it back. Mm-hmm. And I will say over the last few months, like I feel like I'm a little bit more calm because I have people in my circle like you that have helped me overcome that. So what are some like key components to maybe like the women that are struggling with whatever situation that they're in to overcome the confidence that they may not have, or the imposter syndrome that they may be facing, or the fact that they think that they lack the self-care within themselves to provide for their families in the way they should?
Yeah. I think obviously the first thing that I think of is time management is just so hard. I think it definitely if you're a mom, but even if you're not a mom, like I think about how busy work is, how busy even maintaining relationships are, showing up for friends, families, and the world just seems to be in hyperspeed today, And so if we don't demand a stop in our day and a break to just take a deep breath, nobody's going to give us that time.
Right.
And so I think that's super important, and not that I'm the best at that, because I can absolutely self-sacrifice all the time, but kind of what you mentioned, it's not about being perfect. So if you want to aspire to an hour of self-care every single day, but you're just slammed with work or slammed with your family or whatever else, like that's an unrealistic goal, and I think that it's weird for me as a life coach to help people almost lessen their goals. But it's not that I don't think that people can get there. It's just that if you are at the I don't know what that's called, the bottom of a mountain, right? And you're like, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be at the very top. I'm like, you're going to fail, Do you really want to get to the top? Yes. Well, then let's just plan to get about maybe a tenth of the way up tomorrow, right? And people don't want to hear that because they're like, no, I'm getting to the top. And I'm like, you're going to fail. And so those are hard conversations that you actually have to have with people, is like, I see your motivation and I'm loving it, but let's actually channel that into something that really can happen, that feels realistic for you, so that we can celebrate the small wins, so that it builds the momentum to get to that next goal and that next goal, and ultimately get you to the summit,
Yeah.
So basically, going back to the time management thing, I feel like it's all about what is realistic for you. So if women are struggling with finding time for self-care, finding time to, making this up, write that book that they want to write, or start that podcast, whatever it is, don't necessarily think you're going to record the whole podcast, start a whole podcast in one night.
Right.
Maybe just give yourself 30 minutes 3 times a week to start brainstorming ideas. And then eventually those ideas will come together, and then it's the 30 minutes will turn into researching equipment. And then from there, it's recording the episodes, and then it's editing. And then eventually, before you know it, through consistency and discipline, you'll have yourself a podcast.
Right.
So it feels weird to tell people go smaller, but it's really go smaller to go bigger. Right.
Right. And I think too, in the world we live in today, social media has really screwed a lot of people up in the mentality aspect.
Oh yeah.
So like, we do social media for personal brands and small businesses. Like, truly, I love it. For personally, as a mama and as like a crazy like lifestyle person, it drives me nuts. It literally diminishes my mentality. And I'm just going to be frank with everyone. I mean, I'm very vulnerable, very raw, very real with everyone, in the sense of like, you have to step away from what you think is what you should be doing, and just provide what you are and who you are and how you can do it in your time frame to your consumer or your audience. Because what a lot of people forget is social media is just the preview of someone's life, and it's the snapshots that they're only willing to show you, and they control it. So think about it like this. Even me, the influencers that you're looking at, even like people that'll come up to me and say, oh my God, Shelby, you're killing it. We control what we show you. So you think you know me, you think you know your influencer, you think you know every single thing about their life, but you don't.
Right.
You know what they are showing you. And a lot to go off of what you just said is, we are all looking for that quick fix.
Instant gratification.
The instant gratification of maybe the weight loss journey, maybe the business. Like, you see someone that's making, 7 figures, or they have tens of thousands of followers, but you don't know their life.
Right.
And so us as women, we try to strive for perfection versus just showing up vulnerable and how we are. We're freaking tired. We're putting a lot on our shoulders, whether you're working, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids. Women in general put so much pressure on themselves to show up in such a way. But that's how we've been taught.
Right.
And that's how we've learned. And that's how we perceive the world. In reality, you have the opportunity to take a step back now and say, this is how I want to be perceived. Yeah. And this is how I want to show up. Like, for me, putting out a podcast is scary as hell. Scary as hell. But
You're not.
But
Literally, everyone around me is like, rip the damn Band-Aid off. Yeah. It's time to get it out. It's not going to be perfect.
Yes.
No one might not listen to the first episode. Like, truly, it's fine. Maybe a little, might crawl in a hole. But anyway, nobody might listen to it, but you have to start to build and you have to start to grow and to be successful, because the thing is, every successful person that we follow or that you envy or that you want to be or you aspire to be, even the people that I look up to, started somewhere.
Exactly. And
just because they didn't document where they started, right, doesn't mean they didn't go through the exact same things that yes, you go through. And so a lot of times I talk to women in the sense of like, you are encouraging me to step outside of my comfort zone. You are encouraging me to show up and just show a picture on social, or you're encouraging me to video or whatever, in the sense of like, you don't have to have a filter. You don't have to have makeup. You can really show up who you are, and you're going to be so much more relatable to your consumer versus the entire world than you think.
It's so refreshing.
And the moment, just like you said earlier, the moment you let your guard down, or the moment you told people you were doing life coaching and that you're here to help them figure out how to balance work and self-care, or work and being a mom, or just work in life, your DMs flooded because they were like, I want to talk to you.
They did. Yeah. People have, everybody's going through something, and sometimes they don't know who to talk to about it, and the thing is that if you're just looking for connection, basically it's you that has to you can't just be like, I'm going to connect, and yet I look perfect.
Yes.
Like, I don't relate to her.
Right.
Or whoever it is. You have to show up messy. You have to be vulnerable. And that's where people are like, me too. I feel that way. And also, this also is going on. What's your thoughts on this? And that's where you really build community and strong relationships and get potential clients for me.
Right. Yeah.
But for anybody, really. And it's scary to do that because, of course, we think, and I don't know where this came from, but it was, at least for me and my upbringing, it was always, you want to put your best foot forward, of course, right? You want to make a good impression. I don't think anything's wrong with that, but I think that you miss out on some really good conversations and some really good connections if you just pretend like it's a good day every day.
Oh, yeah. And I think that I talk about this a lot, and I probably should talk about it more, is if I didn't do what I do now, I would have never met the people that I know now. Totally, yeah. In the sense of like, I have friends and connections around the world at this point because I've been vulnerable. I put myself out there. I've shown the hardships. I've shown the successes. They cheer me on. They're in my DMs. And the thing with social media is a lot of people are so focused on that stupid ass vanity metric of like, I have so many followers. I get this much engagement. I get this much saves. I got the blue check. I don't have the blue check. I got, like all this crap that literally does not matter. Yeah. It's the conversations and exactly what you just said, the relationships that you're building that will ultimately turn into a client, or their friend or their mom or their dad or their aunt or their grandmother or whatever will eventually turn into a client because they have now built trust in you. And I always say this, like, you always want to build super fans to the point where no matter what you are selling or what you are doing, they are going to support you. Right. And I was having this conversation the other day. I was going TikTok live with the Taylor Technique guy, and we were talking about how people want such large followings, but they don't really understand that if you Google what 50 people in a room look like, it's still a lot of freaking people. Like, if you stood in front of 50 people in a room, would you be okay with that? Like, right. The Covington Beer Garden thing that I put on and 150 people walked in, I was like, holy crap. And yet you freak out that you only have 150 followers. And so I think that like social media has definitely messed with the mindset of not only women, but everyone. And so just for like a question on your aspect of like, if there's someone that is thinking of leaving their situation or being an entrepreneur or stepping outside of their comfort zone, sure, what would be your first steps for them to kind of push them in that direction and like guide them and say like, you're right in where you're going, or no, this is not right, but your time will come? Like, what would be your advice on that?
100%. You have to know what your values are. Your values are what are going to guide your decisions. When things get confusing, when things get a little fuzzy, you go back to your values. So just as an example, that's always one of the first things that I do when I would meet with my clients was we would do this exercise, and you go through and you figure out what your either top 3 to 5 values are.
Right.
And you write power statements, and so this one woman that I was working with, I don't know why this impacted me so much, but she graduated from law school, but ended up having 2 children very close together. So she was a stay-at-home mom, and she was just really struggling with that. And we figured out that fun was one of her top values, and she just wasn't having fun. She had babies at home, and it was just no sleep and all spit up and whatever. And so one of her power statements was, and this probably isn't it, but it was incorporate fun, something.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah.
And so what she realized is, while she was doing something as simple as the dishes or vacuuming, if she just blared music and danced while she was doing it, it absolutely changed her perspective on the situation. It changed her mood. Her marriage ended up getting better. So simple. It was just she didn't realize before she and I started meeting together that she wasn't having fun, and she didn't realize how important that was.
Right.
So if someone's looking to go out on their own, or leave corporate or anything, before you make any big life decision, you have to know, who am I? What do I stand for? What are my boundaries? What are my non-negotiables? And usually that can be summed up in 3 to 5 values. And if you write those power statements, which is essentially just putting a very strong action or a verb, in front of that value, it pretty much can guide you, so it helps you realize no, as an entrepreneur, no, I'm not going to do that, because that's a boundary I set, because integrity is one of my values.
Right. Yeah.
Or loyalty, is one of my values, and I don't want to, hurt that relationship or whatever it is. I'm only, I guess, speaking in the negative terms right now, but that's my first piece of advice is know who you are, figure out those values, and then that's where the life courses, or the life, and when I say courses, the pathways, they seem to just kind of fall into place.
You just have to know what you want.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is you should do that first, because I did not, even though I do know them now. I do that a lot with my clients, all of what are your pillars? What is your demographic? Who's your avatar? Da, 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 da. And then I remember recently I was holy shit, I've never sat down and actually said that for myself, because it's just been.
You said you didn't know what they were, but how easy did they pop up in your?
And really quickly. It's
exactly.
So but I know.
You didn't do the exercise, but the core of who you were, you knew.
You knew. And I will say this, if you are doing something, and I've had this conversation a lot, and I feel like you're going to agree with it, or you might not. Who knows, really? She'll tell me if she doesn't. But your gut is about 95% always right. And so when I say that is, say you're leaving corporate and it feels right, trust your gut. Obviously, figure out your financials. If you have to be like me and build out a damn PowerPoint for your husband to see and sit in the living room and look at it, whatever. Or if you're meeting with a client and it could be great money and it could be life-changing money, but something in your gut says don't do it, then trust your gut. Your gut, your intuition is telling you a lot more than you think. And in that moment, you could feel well, this client, if I don't take them, then I'm a failure. Or what if nothing like this comes up again? Or if I stay in corporate, I'm stuck. Or if I leave, da 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 da. It ultimately is your intuition and God both saying there's a bigger opportunity coming. Yes. And so trust yourself and trust that you know your values, your mission, your goal. And just like Steph just said, I don't have them written down and plastered on my wall or my power statements yet, but I basically pretty much know what I stand for at this point. And I'm very verbal at this point too, that if you don't know, then yikes. But, but it's just
right.
I think too, a lot of times with women is I've always been told I'm very outgoing and I speak my mind and I really don't care. But in all reality, I feel like I do have a really big heart for the people that are within my circle, and I'm very protective of that nature.
That's true.
But in the sense of you like me, you don't. And it still affects me, but it won't affect me enough to keep me moving forward. And I think that a lot of times with women is majority of us just want to be liked and we just want to be accepted by a lot of people. And it's very rare if you don't. And letting those people stop you from doing what you want to do is very sad to think about, because if you think about yourself in 5-10 years and you're like, if I would have just not cared what Stephanie thought or Sally thought or whomever that case was, and I just did the damn thing, where would I be now?
Yeah.
And so for this podcast, I really just wanted to empower women to whatever it is that you want to do, just chase your damn dreams. Like, truly, you will have a circle that will support you, that will tell you that's a dumb idea, that will say, record that crap again, whatever the case may be, but they're doing that in your best interest. Yeah. And I just think that that's very valuable that women find that. And I will say, on a podcast that has already aired and everything, we talked about how the fact that I was never really a girl's girl, like ever, honestly. And until like more recently, because I just found that women are very catty, which is very true. Until you find the right people that are going to support you. And then you become like a mega girl's girl at that point, because you're like, this is awesome. Women are empowering women. Yeah. So if this is me telling you, if you are looking to do something, hire that coach, hire that life coach. If Bloom opens back up again, if I have anything to say with it, it will. But I have seen it firsthand. You are amazing. You've given me truly so much guidance, so much confidence, so much feedback that whether I liked it in the moment or didn't like it in the moment, I still took it as that is coming truly from a good place.
I love you.
And exactly what I need to hear in that moment. Yeah. So I appreciate you being here. Absolutely. And this isn't going to be our only time. Duh. She's coming back. Okay. And if you do decide to get back on social, where can these beautiful humans listening find you?
I'm on Instagram. I think it's Bloom Life Coaching LA.
We will put it in the show notes. How about that?
And I know I'm on Facebook. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know if I'm going to do the TikToks.
I mean, that's about to go. We don't really know what that is. Right. You're not done. I have one more question.
Okay.
Are you ready for it? I don't tell any of my people yet. And the fact that this hasn't aired as we're recording this, it's going to suck when it does, because people are going to be waiting for it. But I want a real answer.
Okay.
If you could go back and tell the little girl one thing, what would you tell her?
I'm just going to say the first thing that popped in my head, which was, don't give a shit about what other people think.
Yes!
The first thing that came to my mind.
Oh my God, the fact that you just said that, I love it. I asked that question and nobody really gets like vulnerable. I did the brand video or whatever, and they asked me that question last. I cried.
What did you say?
Well, you're just going to have to wait and see.
You're right. Okay.
It was good. I hope they kept it. They might not, because they probably got awkward because I cried. But the thing is, like, it's when you're little, we had this conversation at dinner tonight. The world is so cruel. The world is so hard. And when you're that age, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And it unfortunately starts so young. I mean, I see it already with my daughter who's going into kindergarten. She, doesn't want to wear a braid because she's unsure, a braid in her hair because she's unsure, and if her friends will think it's cool. And I'm like, well, do you think it's cool? And she's like, I love it. It looks like Elsa from Frozen. I'm like, well, then we're wearing it,
Yes.
So, yeah, I grew up caring way too much about what others think. And honestly, as adults, I think we can all say that really people are so busy with their own lives that honestly, do they really care about you?
And if they do.
Exactly, and so it's like, wow, think about all that wasted energy, all those missed opportunities, all those really fun, cool things that you could have done just because you were or that you didn't do just because you were too scared, you know? And it's like, damn.
I really love your answer.
Thanks.
Like, I'm really excited about it. Kind of sad you didn't cry, but it's fine. People are just going to think I'm an emotional freaking wreck because I'm going to cry a lot. I've already cried on one episode. It's fine. Anyway, thank you so much for being here tonight. Bye. Cheers to wine. And
we had a great dinner.
We had a date.
Beef short rib.
It was great. And some fried Brussels. What are they, fried?
They said it was fried, but I think it was like pan fried.
It wasn't fried. It wasn't like crispy. It wasn't that Popeye's fried chicken and Brussels.
Yum.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, we might just need to, I know, right? We might need to do another podcast where it's just us talking about life.
It'd be funny for us, at least.
No, people might not say. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you like it, then comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and cheers to another great episode for Damn Good Content. We will see you next week.